I'm a 28-year-old guy, and 3 years ago, my sister Sandra, 26, shattered my life by tearing apart my relationship. Today, I'm recounting everything that happened and how I got my revenge. It all started when I was in a great relationship with my girlfriend Kathy. We had been together for a year, and things were serious. She was a pediatric nurse, passionate about her work, and I, a software engineer, loved how supportive and patient she was with me. I even thought about proposing to her. We connected on so many levels and we were already discussing moving in together. Then there was my sister Sandra. Growing up, she was the golden child, always the star of the family. Valedictorian, Ivy League graduate, landing high-paying jobs right out of college. Meanwhile, I was always in her shadow. As adults, we managed to have a decent relationship, but that was all about to change. When I introduced Kathy to my family, I hoped they'd see how happy she made me. At first they did. But then, out of nowhere, Kathy broke up with me. In tears, she accused me of cheating with multiple women. I was blindsided. I had never even thought of being unfaithful, and the accusations were like a punch to the gut. When I asked her where this was coming from, she revealed that Sandra had shown her proof texts, photos, everything. Kathy blocked me on all platforms before I could even defend myself. I was heartbroken. I couldn't eat or sleep, and I spent weeks trying to figure out how everything fell apart so quickly. Kathy wouldn't talk to me. I called, left voicemails, and even showed up at her workplace once, but she wanted nothing to do with me. I was left in a cloud of confusion, trying to figure out what went wrong. Then it hit me. Sandra had done this. My tech-savvy sister had used her skills to fabricate the entire thing, fake messages, doctored photos, the works. When I confronted her, she didn't even try to deny it. She smirked and said, "You were getting too happy," and it was annoying. That's when it became clear. My own sister had sabotaged my relationship just because she couldn't stand seeing me happy. Furious, I tried to tell our parents, but of course they defended her. They told me I must have done something to provoke her, that Sandra would never hurt me without reason. "She's your sister," they said. "You're exaggerating." My mom reassured me that Sandra wouldn't do something so cruel, and my dad told me to man up and stop blaming her for my problems. It was like living in some twisted version of reality. That's when I decided I wouldn't let this go. I wasn't going to be the victim forever. I plotted my revenge, knowing it would take time. I played nice, acting as though I had forgiven Sandra. Over the next 3 years, I waited for the perfect moment. During this time, I got closer to Sandra and her boyfriend, Thomas. Thomas was a genuinely good guy, successful, kind, and caring, the type of guy anyone would want as a partner. It pained me to see him with Sandra, knowing what kind of person she truly was. But I kept quiet, biding my time. I couldn't help but notice that Sandra didn't appreciate Thomas the way she pretended to. While she flaunted him at family gatherings and on social media, I saw her roll her eyes at his jokes and brush off his affection when she thought no one was looking. 6 months ago, Sandra started acting differently, more secretive, always on her phone, leaving the room to take calls. It wasn't hard to figure out what was going on. Sandra was having an affair, and I wasn't going to let this opportunity pass me by. I quietly began gathering evidence, photos of her with a man who wasn't Thomas, screenshots of their texts. The guy she was seeing, Robert, was her co-worker, loud, arrogant, and the complete opposite of Thomas. In their messages, Sandra and Robert openly mocked Thomas, calling him boring and predictable. It made me sick. Then, last week, Thomas told me he was planning to propose to Sandra. He was excited and even showed me the ring, a beautiful heirloom passed down through his family. I knew the moment had arrived. Thomas organized a grand surprise proposal party, inviting friends and family to witness the big moment. Everything was perfect, the decorations, the anticipation, the excitement on his face. Just as he was about to drop to one knee, I stood up. "Wait," I said, and all eyes turned to me. I revealed everything. I laid out the evidence of Sandra's affair, describing how she had destroyed my relationship with Kathy out of sheer jealousy 3 years ago. As the room fell into shocked silence, I showed photos of Sandra and Robert coming out of a hotel together, read their cruel text exchanges, and even played a voicemail where Sandra called Robert so much better than Thomas. It was brutal, and I wasn't holding back. Thomas was devastated. He stood there, ring in hand, utterly crushed. Sandra burst into tears, screaming at me to stop, but I didn't. I kept going, detailing every lie, every deception, until there was nothing left to say. Thomas stormed out, leaving Sandra sobbing on the floor. The aftermath was chaos. Sandra showed up at my apartment later, demanding I fix the situation, saying I had ruined her life. I laughed in her face. "Now you know how I felt when you ruined mine," I told her. She screamed about how she was my sister, how I had betrayed her, but I didn't care. I reminded her that she had destroyed my relationship with Kathy just because she was jealous and bored. She acted like it was no big deal, saying it was ages ago, and that she thought I was over it. That was the last straw. I told her exactly what I thought of her, how she was selfish, cruel, and spoiled by our parents' constant favoritism. She left in tears, and I haven't heard from her since. Since then, my parents have been blowing up my phone, demanding I apologize to Sandra and fix the family drama. They're furious, claiming I've destroyed the family, and that Sandra didn't deserve to be humiliated. But I stand by what I did. Sandra deserved everything that happened. I'm not about to apologize for revealing the truth. Meanwhile, Thomas reached out to me a week after the proposal fiasco. We met up for drinks, and he thanked me for telling him the truth, though he admitted he wished it hadn't been so public. We had a long talk, and surprisingly, we became friends. He's a good guy, and we've bonded over everything that's happened. A few weeks after the proposal, I heard from Kathy. Word had gotten around about Sandra's affair, and Kathy realized that everything Sandra had told her 3 years ago was a lie. She reached out, and we met up for coffee. She apologized for not believing me back then, and admitted that she had always had doubts about Sandra's proof. We had a long conversation, but in the end, too much time had passed. I told her it wasn't the right time for us to try again, and we parted ways amicably. It was good closure, but I knew it was time to move forward. As for Sandra, her life has spiraled out of control. After Thomas broke up with her, she lost her job and ended up moving back in with our parents. They coddled her at first, treating her like the victim, but even they couldn't ignore the truth forever. A few months ago, Sandra had a massive blow-up with them, and finally admitted to everything, how she had faked the evidence against me, how she'd been unfaithful to Thomas. It was an ugly confrontation, and since then she's been living in a small apartment, barely scraping by. I hear she's in therapy, but we haven't spoken since that day. I've moved on with my life. I earned a promotion at work, and I've started dating again. I even met someone new, a woman named Nora, who has been a breath of fresh air. We're taking things slow, but it feels good to be in a healthy, honest relationship. Thomas and I have stayed close, even planning a camping trip to get away from all the drama for a while. My relationship with my parents is still strained. They keep trying to push for reconciliation with Sandra, but I'm not ready for that. Maybe one day, but not now. For now, I'm focusing on myself, my career, and my future. Looking back, I don't regret what I did. Sandra brought this on herself, and while it was messy, I feel like I've finally taken control of my life. She may have ruined my relationship with Kathy, but I've come out of this stronger and more self-assured. I'm ready to move forward, free from Sandra's shadow and the toxic grip she once had on my life.
Did you hear? Apparently, Zoe has a secret ASMR channel where she whispers roast comments about her audience, and it's starting to get quite the big following.